36 candles. It should have been a symbolic number, a celebration of maturity, of everything built. Instead, that number stared at me from the supermarket cake I had bought myself that morning, because I knew no one else would. The candles flickered with that wavering light that seemed to mock me in the dimness of my apartment. Rodrigo arrived late. Of course he arrived late. It was 9:47 at night when I heard his key in the lock, and I had been sitting at the table since 7, watching the wax begin to melt onto the pink frosting. My phone rested face down next to the empty plate, unable to look once more at the absence of messages from my family. "Sorry, love. Everything got complicated at the office," he said without looking me in the eyes. Rodrigo never looked me in the eyes when he lied. 5 years of marriage had taught me to read every gesture, every inflection of his voice. The office, always the office. The same office I had helped finance with the 450,000 pesos I lent him 3 years ago, when his big idea was going to revolutionize the consulting market. The 450,000 pesos I had saved over 7 years working double shifts as a nurse. The 450,000 pesos that represented every extra hour, every weekend shift, every time I skipped lunch to save those 60 pesos from the daily menu. The 450,000 pesos he promised to return to me as soon as the business took off. The business never took off, but Rodrigo always had money for his outings with clients, for his new watch, for the dinners he never shared with me. "Do you want a piece of cake?" I asked, my voice sounding strangely calm, as if coming from someone else. He took off his tie, an Armani I had given him on our last anniversary, and let it fall onto the couch. "Actually, I'm tired. I ate something out there." Out there. Always out there. He sat across from me, but his body was already leaning toward the door, toward the exit, toward anywhere that wasn't this moment with me. And then, with the same indifference with which he would ask for salt to be passed, he said the words that would redefine the rest of my life. "Look, Sophia, we need to talk. This isn't working. I think I need space. I need time for myself." The air left my lungs. Not from surprise. Deep down, a part of me always knew this moment would come, but from the perfect timing of his cruelty. My birthday. Not the next day. Not next week. Today, the only day of the year that was supposed to be mine. "Time for yourself?" I repeated. My voice trembled, but not with sadness. Something new bubbled in my chest. Something I hadn't felt in years. "Time for yourself after I lent you 500,000 pesos. After I paid the deposit on this apartment because your credit was destroyed. After I covered your credit card debts when—" "Here we go again," he interrupted, rolling his eyes. "Always the same thing. You know what, Sophia? This is exactly why I need to leave. You're exhausted. Everything with you is drama. Everything is, I did this, I paid for that. Do you know how much your favors weigh? Do you know what it's like to live with someone who throws every peso in your face?" Every cell in my body wanted to respond, to scream, to make him see the distorted reality he had just painted, but I said nothing. Because at that moment, as I watched him gather his things from the table, his wallet, his phone, the keys to the car I helped pay for, I understood something with a clarity that took my breath away. This wasn't the end, it was the pattern. It was my father telling me at 15 that I was ungrateful because I asked for 50 pesos for a school trip after I had been helping care for my sick grandmother for months without a word of thanks. It was my brother Javier asking to borrow 80,000 pesos for his wedding 4 years ago, promising to pay me back little by little, and then accusing me of being stingy when I reminded him of the debt 6 months later. It was my mother telling me I was selfish when I confessed I couldn't lend her more money for my younger sister's emergencies after having already given her more than 200,000 pesos over the course of 2 years. It was Carlos, my boyfriend before Rodrigo, who left me after I financed his certification course for 35,000 pesos, disappearing with a classmate 2 weeks after getting his new job. Each one of them had turned my generosity into a debt that I owed them. My love, my sacrifice, my money, everything was transformed into evidence of my flaws. I was controlling for keeping track. I was bitter about remembering. I was toxic for expecting reciprocity. You know what, Rodrigo? I finally said, my voice so serene it surprised me. You're right. He looked up, clearly surprised. They do weigh, I continued. They weigh because they're real. They weigh because they represent years of my life. They weigh because every peso I gave you was a piece of my future that I put in your hands, trusting that you would at least have the decency not to spit it back in my face on my birthday. Sophia,
No. I raised my hand. You don't have to say anything else. You can leave. But listen to me well. Every peso I lent you, every bill I paid, every debt of yours I covered, it's all documented. I have every bank transfer, every receipt, every text message where you promised to pay me, and I'm going to recover every last cent.
He laughed. He laughed. With what lawyer? Sophia? With what money? You have nothing. And he was right. After Rodrigo, after my family, after everyone who had passed through with outstretched hands, I had almost nothing left. My savings account showed a balance of 12,847 pesos. My credit card was maxed out. My emergency fund, the one I had spent years building, had evaporated loan by loan. But I had something he didn't expect. I had nothing left to lose. We'll see, was all I said. That night, after Rodrigo packed a suitcase and left without saying goodbye, I sat on the living room floor and cried. I cried for the lost years, for the money I would never see again, for the naivety of believing that love meant sacrificing everything. I cried until there were no more tears, until the sun began to filter through the curtains that had been broken for 6 months, because Rodrigo always said he would fix them this week. And when I finished crying, I got up, washed my face, and opened my laptop. If they were going to turn me into their enemy for daring to ask for what was mine, then I would be the best enemy they had ever had. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I reviewed every document, every email, every text message I had ever exchanged with Rodrigo. I downloaded 5 years of bank statements. I printed receipts. I created spreadsheets. At 6:23 in the morning, when the dawn light painted my apartment walls a pale orange, I had before me the complete evidence of my own financial ruin. Loans to Rodrigo. Initial capital for RG Consultors, 450,000 pesos, May 2021. Temporary loan to pay back taxes, 85,000 pesos, November 2021. Apartment rent 18 months while he established the business, 234,000 pesos. Car deposit 120,000 pesos in my name due to his bad credit. Credit card payments when there was a problem with the bank, 67,000 pesos. Various emergencies, 94,000 pesos. Total 1,050,000 pesos. More than 1 million pesos, the equivalent of 3 years of my salary as a nurse, enough to have bought a small apartment, enough to have started my own business, enough to have secured my future. Instead, I had secured his, and Rodrigo was only the last piece of a much larger puzzle. I opened another file. This one hurt more. Money lent to my family. My brother Javier was the first. I remember the day he came to my apartment 4 years ago, with tears in his eyes, saying that if he didn't get 80,000 pesos, his wedding would be canceled. It's for Maria Jose, he told me. She's the love of my life. Please, Sophie, you understand what true love is. I understood. That's why I gave him the money I had saved for a specialization course in neonatal nursing, the course that could have given me a 40% raise in my salary. Javier never paid me back, but he did have money for the honeymoon in Cancun, for the new 65-inch television, for the weekend outings. And when 6 months later I gently mentioned the debt, he accused me of wanting to ruin his marriage over money. My mother had been more subtle, more consistent, small emergencies that accumulated. Repair of my younger sister's car, 15,000 pesos. Medications for my father, which I later discovered had been purchased with his insurance, 8,000 pesos. Help for my niece's school, 12,000 pesos monthly for 2 years, 288,000 pesos. Repairs to the family house, 95,000 pesos. Every time I protested, every time I suggested that perhaps other family members could contribute, I became the selfish one, the one who had forgotten where she came from. But the hardest blow had come 2 years ago when my sister Patricia, the baby of the family, the spoiled one, decided to open a clothing boutique. She came to me with a business plan printed on glossy paper, with projections that promised to return my investment in 6 months. I gave her 180,000 pesos, the savings I had left after helping my family again. The boutique closed for 4 months. Patricia blamed the economy, the location, the competition. She never blamed herself for spending 45,000 pesos of business money on a trip to Miami to study fashion trends. When I asked her to at least acknowledge the debt, she told me I was a bad sister for pressuring her when she was going through a difficult time. Family total 843,000 pesos, almost another million, added to Rodrigo. I had given away, because that's what it was, gifts disguised as loans, almost 2 million pesos in the last 8 years. 2 million pesos that represented every double shift, every night shift, every weekend I worked while my colleagues went out with their families. 2 million pesos that were the price of being the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who was always there. I got up from the living room floor, where I had been working surrounded by papers, and walked to the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed exhausted. Deep dark circles, pale skin, hair pulled back in a messy bun, 36 years old, but I looked like I had lived 50. When had I become this diminished version of myself? I remembered the 28-year-old Sophia, who had graduated from nursing school with honors, who had plans and dreams. I wanted to have my own clinic someday, specialize in palliative care. I wanted to travel, learn languages, perhaps do international volunteer work. But that Sophia had been spent peso by peso, sacrifice by sacrifice, until only this empty shell remained that gave and gave without ever receiving anything in return except reproaches. My phone vibrated on the table, a message from my mother. Sophie, your sister needs help with rent this month. Can you send her 8,000 pesos? It's urgent. I looked at the message for a long minute. 8,000 pesos. A small amount compared to everything I had already given. But at this moment, with only 12,847 pesos in my account, it was almost everything I had left. And there it was, again, the request formulated as a fact, assuming my compliance. Not a how are you, not a happy belated birthday, not even a please, just the outstretched hand, waiting. My fingers moved across the keyboard. I can't, Mom. I'm sorry. The response came in 30 seconds. What do you mean you can't? You always have money saved. Your sister has 2 children. Sophia, are you really going to be so selfish? There it was, selfish, the word they used as a weapon every time I dared to say no. Before, that word would have made me give in. It would have made me run to the ATM, empty my account, be left with nothing rather than be selfish. But today, after Rodrigo left me on my birthday without a real explanation, after having added up the millions I had lost being generous, that word bounced off me without penetrating. I wrote, I don't have money, Mom. And if I did, I need to save it for myself. I'm sorry. I turned off my phone. The call started 5 minutes later. First my mother, then my sister, then Javier. I let them all go to voicemail. I knew what they would say. I knew exactly the script, the accusation, the guilt, the emotional manipulation designed to make me feel small and petty. But something broke in me last night, or perhaps something had been fixed for the first time in years. I felt I could breathe. I went back to my laptop and opened a new document. If I was going to change my life, I needed a plan. I needed to be as methodical and deliberate in my recovery as I had been chaotic and emotional in my ruin. Action plan. 1. Legal consultation. Investigate my options to recover the money from Rodrigo. Look for lawyers who worked on contingency fees or free consultations. 2. Complete documentation. Organize all the evidence. photograph, scan, create digital copies of everything. 3. Financial stability. I needed income. My job at the hospital covered the basics, but I needed something more: extra shifts, freelance work, whatever it took. 4. Family boundaries. No more loans. No more emergencies. The Bank of Sofia was permanently closed. 5. Therapy. I needed professional help to understand how I had gotten to this point. I couldn't fix this alone. It sounded simple on paper. I knew it wouldn't be. At 10 in the morning, I forced myself to shower, get dressed, and leave the apartment. I had a shift at the hospital at 1, but before that, there was something I needed to do. The free legal aid office was downtown, in a rundown 3-story building that seemed to have seen better days. The waiting room was full women with small children, elderly men with crumpled papers in their hands, all with the same expression of desperate exhaustion. I joined them. 3 hours later, I left with an appointment for next week with a lawyer named Monica Ruiz, who specialized in financial fraud cases in domestic relationships. The receptionist had warned me not to expect miracles. These cases are complicated, especially without a written contract, but at least it was a start. My shift at the hospital that afternoon was mechanical. I changed bandages, administered medications, checked vital signs, all with the efficiency of years of practice, but without really being present. My mind was elsewhere, calculating numbers, planning moves, and anticipating obstacles. "You're distracted today," Marcela told me, my colleague and the closest person to a friend I had at work. We were in the nursing lounge, taking advantage of a rare pause in the chaos of the evening shift. "Rodrigo left me," I said simply. "Yesterday, on my birthday." "That son of a..." Marcela slammed down her coffee. "Seriously? On your birthday?" I nodded. "Sophia, I'm so sorry." She paused. "Although honestly, and I know this sounds horrible right now, but I think it's the best thing that could have happened to you." I looked at her, surprised. "Look," she continued, lowering her voice. "I know it's not my place, and maybe I should have said something before, but that guy, he never treated you well. It was always you who gave. You paid for dinner when the 4 of us went out. You covered his emergencies, and he always had some excuse, some reason why you should be the one to sacrifice." I felt a lump in my throat. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because when you're in the middle of something like that, you can't see it. And people who love you, we tried, Sophie. We hinted at things, tried to make you see, but you always had a justification for him. Marcela took my hand, but now that he's gone, now that he's finally shown who he really is, you have a chance to recover. I lent him more than 1 million pesos," I whispered. "I know." "You knew!" "Sophie, we all knew. We saw how you worked double shifts, how you never bought anything for yourself, how you were always tired. You don't need to be a detective to put 2 and 2 together." I felt exposed, vulnerable. Everyone had seen my humiliation, my stupidity, and no one had said anything loud enough to stop me. "It's not your fault," Marcela said, as if reading my mind. "He's a manipulator, and from what you've told me about your family, this is a pattern. You're the one who fixes, the one who rescues, the one who sacrifices, and people like Rodrigo, like your family, can smell that from miles away. They take advantage of it. I don't know how to get out of this. One step at a time, and the first step is to stop giving them money. Can you do that?" I thought about my mother's message that morning. I already started. Marcela smiled. "Then you're already ahead of where you were yesterday." That night, when I arrived at my empty apartment, Rodrigo had come during the day and taken more of his things, leaving empty spaces on the shelves that seemed to scream his absence. I found 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. My family had moved from anger to direct manipulation. "My mother, your father is very disappointed in you. I can't believe you're turning your back on your sister when we need you most.
Xavier,
After everything Mom and Dad did for you, this is how you repay them, paying for your education, raising you, and now you can't help with 8,000 pesos. How convenient that you have money for your whims but not for family. Patricia, I hope you feel good about yourself, Sophia. My children won't be able to eat this week because of your selfishness. I hope you can sleep at night." Each message was a dagger designed to pierce exactly where they knew it hurt. They knew me, they knew which buttons to press, which wounds to reopen, and it worked. I felt the familiar wave of guilt, the almost physical impulse to fix this, to be the good sister, the good daughter. My hand moved toward my phone to make a transfer, to fix this problem and restore peace. But then I remembered something Marcela had said, one step at a time. Instead of responding, I opened a new group chat with my family. My fingers trembled as I wrote, "For years, I have given money to this family without expecting anything in return. I have given more than 800,000 pesos in total. I have never asked to be paid back. I have never demanded gratitude. But now I am in a difficult financial situation. Rodrigo left me and owed me more than 1 million pesos. I have no savings. I can barely pay my rent. So no, I cannot continue giving money. And the way you are speaking to me, accusing me, attacking me, manipulating me, only confirms that I made the right decision. I need time and space. Please respect that." I pressed send before I could regret it. The response was immediate and brutal. "Javier, wow, now it turns out we are the bad guys. We always knew that one day you would throw this on our faces. You always thought you were better than us. Patricia, I can't believe you're saying this in a group chat. This is between you and me, but of course, you always have to play the victim publicly. My mother, I didn't raise such a cruel and selfish daughter. I don't know what happened to you, Sophia, but I don't recognize you." And there it was, the inversion of reality, so perfect I could almost have admired its craftsmanship. I was cruel for stopping, allowing them to exploit me. I was selfish for finally prioritizing myself. I was unrecognizable for daring to have boundaries. I turned off my phone and put it in a drawer. That night, alone in my apartment, I prepared a simple dinner pasta with canned sauce, nothing fancy, and sat down to eat it in silence. The apartment was too quiet. For years, I had filled that silence with the presence of other people. Rodrigo, my family, anyone who needed something from me. But for the first time, instead of feeling that silence as a condemnation, I felt it as a promise. This was my space, my time, my life. And for the first time in years, it was going to be mine. Monica Ruiz's office looked nothing like the law offices I had seen on television. There were no polished mahogany shelves or gold-framed diplomas. Instead, it was a small, efficient space on the second floor of a commercial building, with walls painted a soft yellow and plants that survived valiantly in mismatched pots by the window. Monica herself was a woman of about 45 years old, with short hair dyed and intense red and thick-framed glasses that gave her an air of severity that dissolved the moment she smiled. "Coffee?" she asked, pointing to a coffee maker that had seen better days. "Please." She sat across from me with a yellow legal pad and a pen. No laptop, no tablet, just paper and ink. "So, Sophia, tell me your story, from the beginning." And I did. I told her about Rodrigo, about 1,050,000 pesos, about the broken promises. I showed her my bank statements, my wire transfers, the text messages where he promised to pay me next week again. Monica took notes meticulously, without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When I finished, there was a long silence while she reviewed her notes. "Good," she finally said. "First things first, you have a case. It's not perfect. It ever is when there's no formal contract. But you have enough documentation to demonstrate a pattern of loans and a reasonable expectation of repayment." I felt something like hope inflating in my chest. But she continued, and that but fell like a stone. "You need to understand something. These cases are long, they're expensive, and they're emotionally exhausting. Rodrigo is going to fight. He's going to hire a lawyer who's going to say these were gifts, not loans. He's going to paint a picture of you as a controlling person who's trying to extort him after a bitter breakup. It's going to be ugly." "I don't care," I said, though my voice trembled slightly. "I need to do this, not for the money. I mean, yes, I need the money, but more than that, I need there to be consequences. I need him to know that he can't just take from me and disappear without answering for it." Monica looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something like recognition in her eyes. I understand, she said softly. Believe me, I understand. I've had many clients sitting exactly where you are, repeating, and I'm going to tell you what I tell them. This is going to change your life, but not in the way you expect. Not just because you'll potentially recover your money, but because you're going to have to face every lie you told yourself, every excuse you made for him, every time you convinced yourself you were being loved when you were actually being used. I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I held them back. I'm ready, I said. Good. Then let's begin. Over the next 2 weeks, my life became a whirlwind of legal documentation. Monica had me compile everything, every receipt, every message, every email. I had to write a detailed timeline of my relationship with Rodrigo, dating each loan, each broken promise. It was painful. Each document was a reminder of my own naivety, of the times I chose to believe instead of seeing, but it was also revealing. As I organized everything, I began to see patterns I hadn't noticed when I was in the middle of the relationship. The way Rodrigo always asked for money right after doing something nice for me, a romantic dinner, a small gift, an elaborate compliment, the way he timed his requests for when I was most vulnerable, after a fight with my family, after a difficult day at work, when I was tired and couldn't think clearly. It wasn't accidental. It was calculated. Monica filed the lawsuit on October 18th, action for collection of money, requesting the return of 1,050,000 pesos plus interest and legal costs. Rodrigo's reaction was, 2 days after being served, he called. I let it go to voicemail. The message was a masterpiece of manipulation. Sophia, love, what are you doing? A lawsuit. Seriously? I thought we were better than this. I thought we could talk like adults. Look, I know things ended badly. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. But this is too much. You're ruining my reputation, my business. People are talking. Do you really want to do this to me? After everything we were with each other. Please, call me. We can work this out. I listened to the message 3 times, analyzing every word. Sophia, love, intimacy. What are you doing? Questioning my judgment. I thought we were better than this. Shame, we could talk like adults. Implying I was being childish. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. An empty apology was designed to disarm me. You're ruining my reputation, my business. Playing the victim. After everything we were, nostalgia as a weapon. In every phrase, a trap. And 3 weeks ago, I would have fallen for every one of them. I didn't call back. Instead, I forwarded the message to Monica, who added it to the file as evidence of inappropriate contact attempts. Rodrigo's legal response arrived in mid-November. His lawyer, a guy with an elegant office in Santa Fe who charged 8,000 pesos an hour, money that had probably come from my loan, argued exactly what Monica had predicted, that all the money was voluntary gifts given in the context of a loving relationship, with no expectation of repayment. The counter lawsuit came 3 days later. Rodrigo was suing me for moral damage and defamation, arguing that my lawsuit was a malicious attempt to ruin his professional reputation. He was requesting 500,000 pesos in damages. When Monica told me this, I felt the floor move beneath my feet. It's a tactic, she assured me. It's intimidation. He wants to scare you into withdrawing the lawsuit. It won't succeed. It has no legal basis, but it's going to make the process longer and more expensive. I can't afford a longer trial, I said, my voice barely whispering. I can barely afford the costs I already have. I know, and he knows it too. That's why he's doing it. That night, in my apartment, I sat with my laptop and faced the brutal reality of my financial situation. Monthly income, 28,000 pesos, nurse's salary. Monthly expenses, rent, 8,500 pesos. Utilities, 1,200 pesos. Food, 3,500 pesos. Transportation, 1,500 pesos. Legal costs, installation payment, 4,000 pesos. Credit card debt, minimum payment, 2,800 pesos. Total expenses, 21,500 pesos. Leftover 6,500 pesos. Those 6,500 pesos had to cover everything else: clothes, medical emergencies, any unexpected expenses. There was no margin for error. And my family kept pressing. After I told them I couldn't help anymore, there were 3 days of silence. Then, as if they had agreed on a strategy, they changed tactics. My father called. My father, who almost never called, who would let my mother handle all the money things for decades. "Sweetheart," he said, his voice loaded with a softness I hadn't heard since I was a child. "Your mother told me what happened. With Rodrigo, with the money. I'm so sorry, Sophia. I know you're going through a hard time." I waited. I knew more was coming. But look, that's exactly why we need to support each other. Family is all that really matters, especially in difficult times. Your sister, she's struggling too. Her children need to eat. And I know you've said you don't have money, but, well, you've always been good with money, Sophie. You've always known how to manage. I'm sure you can find something to help her, even if it's just a little. "Dad," I said, interrupting what was clearly a prepared speech. "I lent Patricia 180,000 pesos 2 years ago. She's never paid me back a single peso. Javier owes me 80,000 that he's never even acknowledged. I've given Mom more than 300,000 pesos in emergencies that were never reimbursed. And now Rodrigo owes me more than 1 million. I have nothing left to give." "Sophia, those were gifts?" "They weren't," I said firmly. "They were loans. Everyone knew it. Everyone promised to pay me back. No one did." "Well, but family is different. You can't expect..." "Expect what, Dad? That they pay me back? Why not? Why can I expect Rodrigo to pay me but not my own family? What kind of family takes and never gives anything back?" There was a long silence. "I don't recognize you," he finally said, his voice cold now. "This isn't the daughter we raised." "You're right," I responded, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "The daughter you raised would have apologized right now, would have found the money somehow, would have put everyone's needs before her own. But that daughter is learning that isn't love, it's exploitation." He hung up. I cried. Of course I cried. I had grown up believing that family love was unconditional, that family would always be there. But their love came with very clear conditions. I had to give without expecting anything in return. I had to sacrifice without complaining. I had to be available whenever they needed me, but never needed anything myself. The day of my first preliminary hearing arrived on December 3rd, a gray and rainy Tuesday that seemed to perfectly reflect my mood. Monica had prepared me exhaustively, explaining what to expect, what to say, what not to say. "Don't let them provoke you," she warned me as we walked to the courthouse. "Rodrigo and his lawyer are going to try to make you angry, to make you seem irrational or vindictive. Stay calm, answer only what they ask you, and trust the evidence." The courthouse was an old building with hallways that smelled of dampness and bureaucracy. We sat on hard wooden benches outside courtroom 3 waiting our turn. And then I saw him. Rodrigo arrived with his lawyer, a man in a suit that probably cost more than my 2 months' rent, but that wasn't what took my breath away. It was the woman with him. Young, she couldn't be more than 25 years old, pretty in a dress that screamed money. And the way Rodrigo touched her, his hand on the small side of her back, the familiarity between them. This wasn't new. This wasn't something that had started after our breakup. "Sophia?" Monica's voice pulled me out of my trance. "Are you okay?"
"That woman," I whispered.
"How long do you think?" "It doesn't matter," Monica said firmly. "What matters is your case. Focus on that." But it mattered. It mattered because it meant that while I was working double shifts to finance his dreams, he was building a life with someone else. It mattered because every late arrival from the office, every business dinner, every work trip was probably time with her. It mattered because it made every peso I gave him even more pain. The hearing was short, barely 20 minutes. The judge, an older man with bifocal glasses and an expression of deep boredom, listened to the preliminary arguments from both parties. Rodrigo's lawyer was eloquent, painting me as a scorned woman who was trying to extort his client after a friendly breakup. He used words like obsessive, vindictive, emotionally unstable. Monica responded with facts, dates, amounts, documents, cold, professional, relentless. The judge scheduled the next hearing for February, 3 months away, and dismissed us. 3 months? I said when we left the courthouse. I have to wait 3 months?
It's the system.
Monica said, with a sigh. It's slow, but use that time to strengthen yourself, to prepare. This is just beginning. She was right, but not in the way either of us expected. 2 weeks after the hearing, while checking my email on a particularly lonely night, I received a message from an address I didn't recognize. From carolinamendez.1989@gmail.com to sophiadelunanurse@gmail.com. Subject, we need to talk about Rodrigo. My first instinct was to delete it. It was probably spam or worse, some tactic of Rodrigo's to contact me indirectly. But something made me open it. Hello, Sophia. You don't know me, but I know who you are. My name is Carolina Mendez. Until 3 months ago, I was Rodrigo's girlfriend. I know this must sound strange, and I understand if you decide not to respond, but I need to talk to you. There are things you should know about him, things I think could help you in your legal case. If you're interested, we can meet somewhere in public, or if you prefer, I can simply tell you by email. You decide. I'm sorry for everything he put you through. Carolina, I read the email 3 times. My heart was pounding. Was this real, or was it some trap? I forwarded the email to Monica with a single question, what do I do? Her response arrived in 5 minutes. Meet with her, public place. I'm going with you. 2 days later, we met at a cafe in Condesa, a bright and crowded place where I felt safe. Carolina arrived punctually, nervousness evident in every movement. She was different from how I had imagined her. There was nothing of the polished confidence I expected. Instead, she seemed broken, with dark circles that rivaled mine. Thank you for coming, she said, sitting across from Monica and me. I know this is weird. Why did you want to talk to me? I asked directly. Carolina took a deep breath, because when I saw the lawsuit, Rodrigo told me he was furious. I understood something. I was you, or I was going to be if I hadn't discovered the truth in time. She pulled out her phone and began showing me photographs. Text messages, emails, wire transfers. The story that unfolded was devastatingly familiar. Carolina had met Rodrigo 2 years ago, 6 months after he and I got married. He had told her he was divorced, that his ex-wife, me, apparently was a crazy woman who wouldn't leave him alone. He had told her an elaborate story about how his business was about to take off, but needed investment. She had given him 380,000 pesos during their relationship. It was always something, she told me, tears running down her cheeks. He needed to pay a supplier, or there was an important client he wanted to impress, or he had a golden opportunity he couldn't pass up. And I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to be the person who supported him when no one else did. What happened 3 months ago? Monica asked, taking notes. I discovered there was another one, a girl named Valeria, 24 years old. She didn't know about me. I didn't know about her. And then I started investigating. And I discovered that you were still married, that he never got divorced, that our entire relationship was a lie. My mind struggled to process this. So when he was with me too, and probably with Valeria, and who knows how many more. The coffee I had ordered was cooling in my hands. Forgotten. Monica kept taking notes, furiously. Why are you telling me this? I asked. What do you gain? Carolina looked me straight in the eyes. Justice and warning others. Rodrigo he's a predator. He's good at what he does. He identifies women who have money, who have good hearts, who want to help, and he drains them until there's nothing left. Then he moves on to the next one.
Are you willing to testify?
Monica asked. To provide formal evidence? Yes. I have everything documented. Messages, transfers, even recordings of some of our conversations. I knew I would eventually need to protect myself. Over the next 2 hours, Carolina told us everything. The details were shockingly like my own experience, the sweet promises, the grandiose plans, the careful manipulation, but she had been more cautious, having documented everything. She showed us messages where Rodrigo promised to pay her next week, identical to the messages he had sent me. She showed us emails where he elaborated stories about contracts that were about to be signed, investments that were going to triple in 6 months. It was all lies, but the real discovery came when Carolina opened a folder on her phone and showed us photographs of documents. "I found this in his apartment," she said. "It wasn't very carefully hidden. I think he felt so secure that he didn't even bother to hide it." They were financial statements from RG Consultors, Rodrigo's business, the company I had financed with 450,000 pesos, the company that was supposedly struggling, that was barely staying afloat, that constantly needed more investment. The company, according to these documents, generated income of 4,800,000 pesos in the last fiscal year. I felt the air leave my lungs. 4 million, I whispered. Monica grabbed her phone and started photographing each document. "This is gold," she murmured. "This is documented fraud." But Carolina wasn't finished. She pulled out more papers. "And this," she said, "is what finally made me leave him." It was a deed for an apartment in Polanco, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, purchased by Rodrigo Garcia 8 months ago for 3,200,000 pesos, paid in cash. "He told me he was renting it from a friend," Carolina said, "but it's his. He bought it with the money he took from women like us." The rage I felt at that moment was different from anything I had ever experienced before. It wasn't the hot and impulsive rage of initial betrayal. It was cold, calculated, burning in its intensity. Rodrigo wasn't simply a bad boyfriend or a selfish husband. He was a con artist. This was his business, his real business, not consulting. Romantic fraud. "How many more do you think there are?" I asked. Carolina shook her head. "I don't know, but based on his lifestyle, on what he makes, I bet we're at least 4 or 5, simultaneously." Monica closed her notebook. "Carolina, this changes everything. With your testimony and this evidence, we can not only win Sophia's case, but we can also file criminal charges. This is fraud. It's potentially bigamy." "Do it," Carolina said with determination. "Do it. Make him pay for what he did." That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment of my relationship with Rodrigo under this new light. Every "I love you" had been a lie. Every promise, a manipulation. Every moment of intimacy, calculated to keep me hooked, to keep me giving. He hadn't loved me. He hadn't even seen me as a person. I was a source of income, a resource to exploit. And the most painful part, I had facilitated all of this. Every warning I had ignored, every red flag I had rationalized, every time I chose to believe instead of investigating. But there was something else, something Carolina had said that kept resonating in my mind. He identifies women who have money, who have good hearts, who want to help. My family. For years, I had thought of my family as a separate source of pain, a different set of wounds. But as I lay awake in the darkness, I saw the pattern. My family had trained me to be Rodrigo's perfect victim. They had taught me that love meant sacrifice without limits, that asking for reciprocity was selfish, setting boundaries was cruelty, that my needs should always come last. And Rodrigo had read that manual perfectly. It wasn't a coincidence that he had chosen someone like me. It was designed by design. I grabbed my phone and opened my family messages. I hadn't checked them in weeks. There were hundreds. At first, they followed the same pattern: accusations, manipulation, attempts to blame me. But then, about a week ago, the tone changed. "My mother, Sophia, your father is in the hospital. He had a small heart problem, nothing serious, but it would be good if you came." I hadn't gone. I hadn't responded. "Javier, Mom is very worried about you. We're all worried. You've been so distant. What's going on? Patricia, look, I know things got tense, but we're family. We can get past this. Why don't you come to dinner this Sunday, like old times? The old times when I gave and they took, and we all pretended it was love. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned for 36 years, wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that this time would be different, that they would finally see me, value me. But another part, the part that had been growing since that night of my birthday, knew the truth. This was another manipulation, more subtle, more emotional, but manipulating, nonetheless. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and wrote an email, not to them, to Monica. I want to also document the money I lent to my family, everything. I want it on record. I don't know if I can recover it legally, but I need it to be on paper in some official place that this happened, that I'm not crazy, that I didn't make it up. Her response arrived the next morning. We can make a notarized document listing all the debts. It's not the same as a court judgment, but it's an official record. If in the future you decide to take legal action, it will serve you. And if not, at least you'll have validation that this was real. Validation that it was real. I hadn't realized how much I needed that until I read it. For years, my family had convinced me that my memory was faulty, that I exaggerated, that I was sensitive and dramatic. Every time I mentioned the money they owed me, they acted as if I was making things up, as if these loans had never happened or were misunderstandings. But I had the wire transfers. I had the messages. I had the evidence. And now I was going to have an official document that said, this happened. Sofia Luna gave more than 800,000 pesos to her family. They never paid her back. This isn't a fantasy. It's a fact. The second hearing in my case against Rodrigo was scheduled for February 14th. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Valentine's Day. The day I used to spend planning something special for Rodrigo, buying gifts I couldn't afford, making reservations at restaurants that were too expensive, all to show him how much I loved him. This year, I would spend it in a courtroom, fighting to recover what he had stolen from me. Monica had filed Carolina's evidence as part of an annex to the case. It demonstrated a pattern of fraudulent behavior. Rodrigo's lawyer had fought to have it excluded, irrelevant to the present case, but the judge had allowed it to remain in the file. It's a good sign, Monica told me. It means the judge is taking this seriously. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake reviewing my notes, going over my testimony, trying to prepare myself for what was coming. And then at 2:37 in the morning, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 months. Every fiber of my being told me not to answer. But I did. Mom? Sophia. Her voice sounded strange, tense. I need you to come home. Now. It's almost 3 in the morning. What happened? It's Patricia. She did something stupid. We need money. We need 50,000 pesos before tomorrow or she's going to jail. I felt as if cold water had been thrown on me. What did she do? That doesn't matter now. What matters is that you're the only one who can help her. Please, Sophia. I know we've had differences, but this is serious. This is your sister. Your family. Mom, I don't have 50,000 pesos. I can barely pay my rent. You can get it. You can get a loan. Use your credit card or something. Please, Sophia. We can't let her go to jail. And there it was. After 2 months of silence, after all the accusations and the poison, they were back only because they needed something. No, I said. The word came out firmer than I expected. What did you say? I said no, Mom. I'm not going to give more money. I'm not going to take out more loans. I'm not going to destroy my credit anymore for emergencies that aren't mine. I can't believe you're being so selfish. Your sister is going to jail Sophia. Then maybe she should have thought about that before doing something stupid. Maybe it's time she faced the consequences of her own actions instead of expecting me to rescue her. If something happens to her, it's your fault. Have you heard of me? Yours. She hung up, and then I turned off my phone. I was shaking, with rage, with fear, with something like liberation. I had said no, I had maintained my boundary, and the world hadn't ended. The next morning, I arrived at the courthouse with Monica at my side. I was exhausted, nervous, but also determined. The courtroom was fuller than I expected. Rodrigo was there, of course, with his lawyer, but there were also other people, Carolina, who had come to offer moral support, even though she wouldn't be testifying today. Marcela, my friend from the hospital, had taken the day off to accompany me. And to my total surprise, my family. My mother, my father, Javier, Patricia, all sitting in the back row, looking at me with a mixture of fury and something like malicious satisfaction. "What are they doing here?" I whispered to Monica. "Hearings are public," she responded. "Anyone can enter." The judge called the session to order and began. Today was my turn to testify. Rodrigo's lawyer questioned me first. It was exactly as brutal as Monica had warned me it would be. "Miss Luna," he began, his tone condescending, "is it true that you and Mr. Garcia had a romantic relationship?" "Yes, we were married." "And during this marriage, is it fair to say that you voluntarily gave money to Mr. Garcia?" "I lent him money with the expectation that he would return it to me." "Did you ever sign a contract specifying the terms of these alleged loans?" "No, but yes or no, Miss Luna?" "No." "And isn't it true that when two people are in a relationship, it's common for them to share expenses and support each other financially?" "Yes, but this wasn't..." "Isn't it also true that you frequently reproached Mr. Garcia about money, that you kept meticulous track of every person he spent?" "I kept track because he never paid me back." "Please answer yes or no." "Did you keep track of the money?" "Yes." "And doesn't it seem to you that this behavior could be considered controlling?" I felt rage bubbling in my chest. Is it controlling to ask to be repaid more than 1 million pesos that I lent? "Yes or no question, Miss Luna. Did Rodrigo ever sign a document promising to return the money to you?" "I have text messages where..." "A legal document? Yes or no?" "No." It continued like this for 45 minutes. Every question designed to make me seem irrational, vindictive, obsessive. Every answer I tried to give being cut off, reduced to a yes or no that eliminated all context. I could see Rodrigo at the defense table with a carefully neutral expression, but I saw the flash of satisfaction in his eyes every time his lawyer managed to trip me up. And my family, watching, judging. When the interrogation finally ended, I felt like I had been put through a blender. But then it was Monica's turn. "Sophia," she began, her voice calm and professional, "can you tell the court about the circumstances of the first large loan you made to Rodrigo?" And I did. I told the court about how Rodrigo had come to me with his big idea for a business, how he had presented a detailed plan, how he promised this was an investment in our shared future. "And what happened to that money?" Monica asked. "According to the financial evidence we've presented, Rodrigo's business was successful. It generated millions in income, but he never returned a single peso to me. And when you asked him about the money, there was always an excuse. The money was tied up in the business. There were unexpected expenses, next week, next month, next year, always tomorrow, never today." Monica presented the exhibits, the text messages, the emails, the bank statements. One by one, she built the case that these weren't gifts, but loans with a clear expectation of repayment. And then she got to Carolina's testimony. Rodrigo's lawyer objected vigorously, but the judge overruled him. Monica read excerpts from Carolina's statement, the same pattern of behavior, the same promises, the same lies. Evidence that this wasn't a misunderstanding between a couple, but a systematic pattern of fraud. I saw Rodrigo tense up. His lawyer whispered furiously in his ear. And then Monica dropped the bomb. "Your Honor, we would like to present evidence that the defendant purchased a property worth 3,200,000 pesos while simultaneously claiming to Miss Luna that he had no money to pay her. We believe this demonstrates both the capacity and the deliberate intent to defraud. The murmur in the courtroom was instantaneous. The judge called for order, but I could see the change in his expression. This was no longer just a domestic dispute. This was fraud. Do you have anything to say about this, counselor? The judge asked Rodrigo's lawyer. The lawyer requested a recess. The judge granted it. During the 20-minute recess, I sat on a bench outside the courtroom, trembling. Monica brought me water. You did well, she told me. Very well. But I didn't feel well. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if every ugly aspect of my life had been laid out for everyone to see. And then my family approached. Sophia, my mother began, her voice full of a false sweetness that made me want to scream. We need to talk. Not now, Mom. Yes, now. Listen, I know difficult things are happening, but Patricia really needs those 50,000 pesos. If she doesn't get them by tomorrow. I already told you no. How can you be here fighting for money with your ex-husband, but you can't help your own sister? Javier interjected. His voice was loud enough for others in the hallway to turn and look. I felt my face flush. This isn't the time or the place. When is the time, Sophia? Patricia joined in. When is it okay for you to talk about family, or does it only matter when you need something? I've always been there for you. Yeah, and you never let us forget it, Javier spat. I always gave this to Javier. I gave that to Patricia, like we're a damn bank account. People had stopped now, staring at us, listening. Monica stood up. You need to leave now. Who the hell are you? Patricia turned to her. This is a family conversation. I'm her lawyer, and I'm asking you to leave before I call security. Her lawyer? My mother laughed, a harsh and ugly sound. Of course Sophia has a lawyer, always so dramatic, always making a scene. And something in me broke. I stood up, my hands trembling, but my voice was firm. You want to know what this is all about? I said loud enough for everyone in the hallway to hear. I didn't care anymore. Let them see. Let everyone see. I lent you, my family, more than 800,000 pesos over the last 8 years. Javier, I gave you 80,000 for your wedding and never saw a single peso back. Patricia, I gave you 180,000 for your business that failed, and then you blamed Emmy when I couldn't give you more. Mom, I've given you more than 300,000 in emergencies that were never real emergencies. Sophia, shut up, my mother began. No. My voice echoed in the hallway. I'm not going to shut up. Not anymore. For years, I shut up. I swallowed every reproach, every accusation of being selfish, every time you made me feel guilty for daring to remind you that you owed me money. But it's over. You're making a scene, Javier hissed. Good. Let it be a scene, because I want everyone to know the truth. I want them to know that I came here today not just to recover money from Rodrigo, but because for the first time in my life, I'm setting boundaries. I'm saying no more being your ATM. No more rescuing you from the consequences of your own actions. No more. Patricia stepped forward, fury in her eyes. You're such a... But before she could finish, Monica's voice cut through the air. If you finish that sentence, I'm going to have you arrested for harassment. There are officers right there. She pointed to 2 security guards who had begun to approach, drawn by the commotion. My family looked at me as if I were a stranger, and perhaps I wasn't the Sophia they knew, the one who gave in, the one who apologized, the one who always found a way to give a little more. Patricia, I said, my voice calmer now, but no less firm. I don't know what you did that requires 50,000 pesos to keep you out of jail. And honestly, I don't care. You're an adult. You made your own decisions, and now you must face the consequences. I'm not your mother. I'm not your savior, and I'm no longer your bank. I can't believe you're being so cruel, my mother said, with tears in her eyes now. Crocodile tears, I realized, designed to manipulate, to make me give in. It's not cruelty, I responded. It's self-love, something you taught me not to have. The guards arrived, then. Is there a problem here? Monica spoke before my family could. These people are harassing my client. Can you please escort them out of the building? What? No, we're her family, Javier began. I don't care who you are, one of the guards said. If she says you need to leave, you need to leave. I watched my family escorting out of the courthouse, protesting all the way. My mother turned once, with a look of pure hatred on her face that chilled my blood. But I didn't back down. I didn't apologize. I didn't run after them. I stayed where I was, breathing heavily, my heart pounding like a drum. Are you okay? Marcella asked, who had witnessed everything from a respectable distance. I don't know, I admitted. Ask me in a year. When the hearing resumed, something had changed. Maybe it was the spectacle my family had put on. Maybe it was the evidence Monica had presented, or maybe it was the expression on my face, no longer that of a victim, but that of someone who had decided to fight. The judge scheduled a new hearing for April, but he also did something unexpected. He ordered Rodrigo to submit complete financial documentation of his business and properties within the next 30 days. Considering the evidence presented today, the judge said this court has concerns about possible attempts to hide assets. Garcia, I order you to provide complete financial statements, tax returns from the last 5 years, and documentation of all properties in your name or under your control. Rodrigo's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a wave of his hand. It's an order, counselor. Your client can comply voluntarily, or I can issue a subpoena, your choice. We left the courthouse at dusk. The sky was tinged with oranges and pinks, beautiful in a way that seemed almost absurd given the brutality of the day. This was big, Sophia, Monica said as we walked to her car. Very big. The judge saw through Rodrigo. And your family, look, I know it was horrible, but it was also perfect. The judge saw how they treat you. He saw that this isn't just about money. It's about a pattern of abuse. Are we going to win? I asked. I can't promise you that. Judges are unpredictable. But if Rodrigo submits those financial documents, and I suspect they'll say what we think they'll say, yes, I think we're going to win. Marcella drove me home. We were silent for most of the time until she finally spoke. That was incredible what you did back there.
Incredible.
I made a scene in front of strangers. You set boundaries. You defended your truth. After years of being trampled on, you finally stood up. I feel terrible. I know, but I also bet you feel a little free. She was right. During the pain, the shame, the exhaustion, there was something else, something small but persistent. Hope. The next 2 months were a strange mixture of mundane and transformative. On the surface, my life looked the same. I worked my shifts at the hospital, paid my bills, struggled with insomnia, but inside something fundamental had changed. I had stopped waiting for Rodrigo to have a change of heart. I stopped checking my phone, expecting an apology message from my family. I stopped fantasizing about reconciliations where they finally saw me, valued me, loved me the way I needed to be loved. Instead, I began to build a life that didn't depend on their validation. The first step was therapy. I found a therapist named Dr. Elena Vargas, who specialized in relational trauma and codependency. She was expensive, 1,200 pesos per session. But Marcella helped me find a clinic that offered a sliding scale based on income. Tell me about your family, Dr. Vargas said in our first session, an afternoon in March where rain beat against the windows of her small office. And I did. I told her everything, the years of giving, the pattern of manipulation, the way I had learned that love meant sacrifice. You know what I see when you tell me these stories? She said when I finished. I see a little girl who learned very early that her value was tied to her usefulness, that the only way to receive love was to earn it through service, through sacrifice, through giving until there was nothing left. Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach, and now, she continued, that little girl became a woman who follows that same pattern. But the good news is that you can learn new patterns. You can unlearn what you were taught. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Vargas helped me see how my family had used manipulation techniques that had names: gaslighting, projection, triangulation. She helped me understand that I wasn't sensitive or dramatic. I was a normal person who had normal reactions to abnormal abuse. What if they're right? I asked her in a session in mid-March. What if I am selfish? What if I should be more generous, more understanding? Sophia, she said gently, do you know what the difference is between generosity and self-destruction? I shook my head. Generosity comes from abundance. You give because you want to, because you can, because it makes you happy. Self-destruction comes from obligation. You give because you feel guilty if you don't, because you fear the consequences of no, because you've been conditioned to believe your value depends on it. She paused. You weren't generous, Sophia. You were self-destructive. I cried in that session. I cried for all the years I had confused my abuse with love. I cried for the 28-year-old Sophia who had had so many dreams, so many plans, before they were gradually eroded by the demands of others. I cried for the lost money. Yes, but more than that, for the lost time, for the life I could have had. But also, for the first time, I cried for the Sophia who was emerging on the other side. In mid-March, Rodrigo submitted his financial documents. They arrived in a large box, hundreds of pages of account statements, tax returns, property records. Monica and I spent an entire weekend reviewing them in her office, ordering Chinese food and coffee while we unraveled the true extent of Rodrigo's wealth. What we found was astonishing. RG Consultors had not only generated $4,800,000 last year, it has generated an average of $3,200,000 per year for the last 4 years. The business that was supposedly struggling, that constantly needed more investment, had been profitable all along. But that wasn't all. Rodrigo owned 3 properties. The apartment in Polanco, $3,200,000. A condo in Playa del Carmen, $2,100,000. A house in Cuernavaca, $1,800,000. Total $7,100,000 pesos in real estate. He had investment accounts worth $1,300,000. And this made me laugh hysterically until Monica made me drink water. He had a sports car worth 850,000 pesos, purchased 6 months after telling me he couldn't pay me because the business was going through a difficult time. Total documented assets, Monica said, pointing to her calculator, approximately 12,400,000 pesos. 12 million pesos, and he had told me he didn't have money to pay me 1 million. We need to notify the judge about this immediately, I said. I already did. I filed an amendment this morning. Monica smiled, a fierce smile that reminded me why I liked her so much. Rodrigo is finished. But the legal victory was only one part of my rebuilding. The hardest part was learning who I was, without being the helpful one, the reliable one, the generous one. For so long, my identity had been tied to giving to others. Who was Sophia when she stopped doing that? I started small. I bought things for myself. Nothing extravagant. I didn't have money for that. But small luxuries I had always denied myself. A new book instead of waiting for the library. A specialty coffee on my way to work. I had always wanted to try yoga class. Each purchase felt simultaneously indulgent and transgressive, as if I were doing something forbidden. But Dr. Vargas reminded me, taking care of yourself isn't selfishness, it's survival. I started saying no at work. When they asked me to cover extra shifts, I evaluated whether I wanted to or needed to instead of automatically saying yes. I discovered that the world didn't end when I set boundaries. My colleagues didn't hate me. The hospital didn't collapse. They simply respected me more. You've been different lately, Marcella told me one day during our lunch break in April. Lighter somehow, like you've dropped something heavy. I have, I said. I dropped the idea that I was responsible for everyone's lives. She paused, then smiled. You know, a group of us are going to the movies this weekend. Want to come? Before I would have declined, I would have made up some excuse about being tired or having things to do, but the truth was I had no social life. I had let it wither, channeling all my energy toward Rodrigo and my family. I'd love to, I said. That Saturday, I sat in a movie theater with Marcella and 3 other nurses from the hospital, eating overly salty popcorn and laughing at a silly comedy. It was mundane ordinary. It was wonderful. After the movie, we went to dinner at a small Italian restaurant. The conversation flowed hospital gossip, disastrous dating stories, plans for summer, and I realized for 2 full hours I hadn't thought about Rodrigo once. I hadn't checked my phone looking for messages from my family. I hadn't been mentally calculating money or worrying about the case or replaying past conversations. I had just existed, present in the moment. "Hey, Sophia, Carmen," one of the nurses said as the night was ending. "We do every 2 weeks. Girls' nights out. You should join us regularly." "I'd love to," I said, and I meant it. On my way home that night, driving through empty streets, I realized I was smiling, but the real transformation came from an unexpected source. At the end of April, one of my patients, an elderly woman named Miss Beatriz, who had been fighting cancer, asked me to stay after my shift. "You have a gift," she told me, taking my hand with her fragile fingers. "Not just as a nurse. You have a way of making people feel seen, safe. Have you ever thought about working in palliative care?" Palliative care. My original dream before it was displaced by the financial demands of my life. I used to think about it, I admitted, but the certification is expensive and life is short, Misha, she interrupted me. "Believe me, I know better than anyone. If you have a dream, chase it before it's too late." Her words stayed with me. That night, I researched palliative care certification programs. The best one in the city cost 85,000 pesos, more than I had, but there were scholarships available, financing options. For the first time in years, I began to think about my future, not in terms of how much money I could give to others, but in terms of what I wanted to build for myself. I applied for a scholarship. I didn't expect anything. There were hundreds of applicants, but the simple act of submitting it felt like reclaiming something I had lost. 2 weeks later, I received an email. I got the scholarship. It covered 70% of the program cost. I cried when I read the email, not from sadness, but from something I barely recognized. Pride in myself, in my potential, in the future I was beginning to build. The program started in June. I would have to make some sacrifices to cover the remaining 30% more shifts, fewer extras, but it was possible. For the first time in years, something was possible. The final hearing was scheduled for May 22nd, 3 months after the confrontation with my family in the courthouse hallway, 2 months after Rodrigo's financial documents revealed the true extent of his wealth. Monica had spent those weeks building a meticulous case. Every wire transfer, every text message, every broken promise documented and cataloged. Carolina had provided a formal statement. She had even found another woman, one named Diana, who Rodrigo had also defrauded, though, for a smaller amount. "We have this," Monica told me about the night before the hearing, "but you need to be prepared. Rodrigo's lawyer is going to try to destroy you on the stand. It's going to be brutal." "I'm ready," I said. And for the first time, The courtroom that day was full. Carolina and Diana were there, Marcella and my friends from the hospital. Even Miss Beatrice had come, weak but determined to support me. My family wasn't there. I hadn't spoken to them since the February confrontation. Occasionally, I received messages ranging from pleas to accusations, but I deleted them without reading. Rodrigo arrived with his lawyer, looking confident in a suit that probably cost more than my 3 months' rent. The judge called the session to order. The case was presented. I alleged that Rodrigo owed me 1,050,000 pesos in unpaid loans. He alleged that everything was gifts given voluntarily with no expectation of repayment. Rodrigo's lawyer went first. His argument was predictable. I was a scorned woman trying to punish my ex-husband for leaving me. The money in question was normal contributions within a marriage. There was no written contract, therefore there was no legal debt. Then it was Monica's turn. She dismantled each argument methodically. She presented the text messages where Rodrigo specifically used the word loan and promised to pay me next week. She presented my account statements showing the substantial transfers far above what would be considered normal expense sharing. She presented evidence that I had paid not only for his business, but for his rent, his car, his personal debts, all things he had assured me were temporary and would be reimbursed. And then she presented Rodrigo's financial documents. Your Honor, Monica said, the defendant claimed to my client that he had no money to pay her, that his business was struggling, that he was going through financial difficulties, but as these documents clearly show, Mr. Garcia's business has been highly profitable for years. He owns multiple properties worth millions of pesos. He has substantial investments. Not only did he have the ability to pay Miss Luna, but while claiming poverty, he was accumulating significant wealth. Rodrigo's lawyer tried to object. Mr. Garcia's assets are irrelevant too, but the judge silenced him. Continue, counselor. Monica presented Carolina's testimony. She read excerpts from her statement, the same pattern, the same lies, the same manipulation. This isn't a loan between spouses that went wrong, Monica said. This is a deliberate pattern of fraud. Mr. Garcia systematically identifies women with financial resources, cultivates romantic relationships with them, and then exploits them for personal financial gain. He has done this with multiple women. He has lied about his marital status. He has hidden his true financial situation. And when these women finally ask for accountability, he paints them as irrational, vindictive, obsessed. The judge leaned forward, clearly interested. Mr. Garcia, he said, would you like to testify in your own defense? Rodrigo looked at his lawyer, who shook his head slightly, but Rodrigo, perhaps believing he could charm the judge as he had charmed me, stood up. Yes, Your Honor, I would. His lawyer looked like he wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Rodrigo walked to the stand with that familiar confidence that I had once found attractive and now only found arrogant. Your Honor, he began, I love Sophia. I loved her when we were together, and part of me always will. And yes, she gave me money, but she did it because she wanted to support me, because she believed in me, because we were a couple building a future together. I forced myself to keep my expression neutral, though every word was like a knife. When things didn't work out between us, he continued, I understood relationships end. It's painful, but it's life. But I never imagined she would turn our relationship, our love, into a financial transaction. Mr. Garcia, the judge interrupted, are you alleging that you never agreed to pay Miss Luna? Not in the sense of a legal loan. No. We talked about building a business together, about sharing our lives, but those were conversations between romantic partners, not business contracts. Monica stood up. Your Honor, may I question the witness? The judge nodded. Monica approached Rodrigo with a folder in her hand. Mr. Garcia, do you recognize this text message? She showed him a printout. Rodrigo looked at it briefly. Yes. Could you read it aloud for the court? Sophia, I promise I'll pay you the 450,000 pesos next week when the payment from client Martinez comes in. Thank you for believing in me. Is that your digital signature at the end of the message? Yes. Did you say I'll pay or did you say I'll give your... Rodrigo hesitated. It's a figure of speech. Yes or no? Did you use the word pay? Yes. And this other message from March 14th, 2022, she showed him another paper. Can you read it? Love, I know you're worried about the money. I swear I'll pay you at least 100,000 this month. I just need to close this contract. Did you use the word pays? Yes. And did you? Did you pay her that 100,000 pesos that month? There were complications. Yes or no? No. And the contract you were supposedly about to close, the one that justified asking for more time, that didn't materialize. Monica pulled out another document. According to your financial records, you closed a contract with Corporation Sandoval that same month for 340,000 pesos. Is that correct? Rodrigo's face turned red. Yes, but that money was committed to... To what, Mr. Garcia? Because according to your tax return, that month you also purchased a Rolex worth 78,000 pesos. Is that true? I was a business gift for me, a gift for yourself, while you owed my client more than 1 million pesos. Monica paused, letting that resonate in the room. And this woman, Carolina Mendez, do you know her? We had a brief relationship, a relationship that began when you were still married to Miss Luna. Sophia and I were having problems. Yes or no? Did you begin a relationship with Miss Mendez while you were still married? Yes. And did you ask Miss Mendez for money? She wanted to invest in my business. Did you tell Miss Mendez that you were married? Silence? Mr. Garcia, answer the question. No. Did you lie about your marital status? It was an omission. Did you lie? Yes or no? Yes. Monica turned to the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. Rodrigo's lawyer tried to do damage control, but the damage was done. Rodrigo had admitted under oath having used the word pay, having promised to return the money, having lied about his financial situation, having deceived about his marital status. Then it was my turn to testify. I sat on the stand, my hands trembling slightly. I had rehearsed this with Monica, but being there with all eyes on me, with Rodrigo staring at me from the defense table, was different. Miss Luna, Monica began gently, can you tell the court how you met Mr. Garcia? And I did. I told the court about our first meeting, about how he had courted me, about how he had been charming and attentive, about how slowly the requests for money began. Did you ever doubt? Monica asked. Constantly, I admitted, but he always had an explanation. There was always a reason why this time was different, why this loan would be the last, and I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe in us. When did you realize he had no intention of paying you? The night of my birthday, I said, my voice breaking slightly. When he left me without explanation, after I had given him everything, that's when I understood that, for him, I was never a partner. I was a resource. Rodrigo's lawyer questioned me afterward, trying to paint me as obsessive, as controlling. But this time, I was prepared. I answered every question calmly with facts, without letting him provoke me. When he finished, the judge leaned back in his chair. I'm going to need time to review all the evidence, he said. I will issue my decision in writing in 30 days. 30 more days of waiting, 30 more days of uncertainty. But as we left the courthouse that day, I felt different. No matter what the judge decided, I had already won something more important. I defended myself, I had told my truth, and I survived. The 30 days felt like both an eternity and a blink simultaneously. I filled the time with work, with therapy, with preparations for my certification program that would begin in June. I remained without contact with my family. It was painful. There were days when I yearned to call my mother, days when I almost gave in to the guilt, but Dr. Vargas reminded me that the pain was part of the process. You're grieving, she told me in a session at the beginning of June. You're grieving for the family you thought you had, for the family you wished you had. That grief is real and valid. Does it ever stop hurting? I asked. Yes, but first you have to allow yourself to feel it completely. On June 21st, exactly 30 days after the final hearing, I received an email from Monica. Subject, we have a verdict. My heart raced as I opened the attached file. The verdict was 17 pages long. I jumped to the conclusion that this court finds that the preponderance of the evidence supports the plaintiff's claim. The text messages, emails, and statements from the defendant clearly demonstrate that there was a mutual understanding that the transferred monies were loans, not gifts. Furthermore, the evidence that the defendant deliberately concealed his true financial situation while soliciting additional funds constitutes fraud. Therefore, the court orders that the defendant, Rodrigo Garcia Mendoza, pay the plaintiff, Sophia Luna Ramirez, the amount of 1,050,000 pesos in principal owed, plus 263,000 pesos in accrued interest, plus 145,000 pesos in legal costs. Total value, 1,458,000 pesos. The defendant has 90 days to pay the total amount or establish a payment plan acceptable to the court, In case of non-compliance, seizure of assets will proceed. Additionally, this court refers the case to the prosecutor's office for investigation of possible criminal fraud charges. I had to read the verdict 3 times before it really sank in. I won. I hadn't just won, the judge had seen exactly what had happened. He had seen manipulation, fraud, the abuse, and he had validated it all. I called Monica immediately. You saw it. You saw it. I could hear the smile in her voice. Is it real? Is this real? It's real, Sophia. We won. And not only that, but the referral to the prosecutor Sepp's office also means Rodrigo could face criminal charges. This is huge. That night, Marcella and my friends from the hospital organized a small celebration in my apartment. They brought cheap wine and supermarket cake and balloons that said, "Congratulations." To Sophia, Marcella toasted, raising her plastic cup, "For finally getting what you deserve." To Justice, Carmen added, "To new beginnings," I said. We drank, ate cake, and laughed. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt genuinely happy. But the joy was mixed with something more complex, because winning the case didn't erase the years of pain. It didn't bring back the lost time. It didn't heal the wounds my family had opened. It was validation. Yes. It was justice. Yes. But it was also the closing of a chapter that had defined much of my adult life. And now I had to figure out what came next. The 90 days for Rodrigo to pay passed without me receiving a single peso. I wasn't surprised. Monica had predicted he would fight to the end. He's going to appeal, she told me. And meanwhile, he's going to try to hide his assets. She was right. Rodrigo filed an appeal and began transferring properties to family members' names, trying to put them beyond the reach of seizure. But Monica was one step ahead. She requested precautionary measures, freezing many of his accounts. The judge, clearly annoyed by Rodrigo's tactics, approved the request. "It could take months, even years, before you see the money," Monica warned me, "but we'll eventually get it. He has assets he can't hide forever." "That's okay," I said, and I meant it. The money would be welcome when it came, but it was no longer the most important thing. The most important thing was what I was building for myself. The palliative care certification program began the first Monday of July. We were 15 in the class, nurses, social workers, and doctors united by the desire to help people at the end of their lives. The first week was intense. We learned about pain management, compassionate communication, family support, but we also learned about our own limits, our own fears about death and suffering. "You can't give what you don't have," the instructor told us, a woman named Dr. Martinez who had worked in palliative care for 30 years. "You have to take care of yourselves first. You have to fill your own cup before you can pour into others." Her words resonated deeply. For years, I had emptied myself, completely trying to fill everyone else's cups. And then I wondered why I felt so exhausted, so resentful. But now I am learning a different balance. I was learning that caring for myself wasn't selfishness. It was a prerequisite for being able to genuinely care for others. In mid-July, while practicing difficult conversations in class, my role-play partner, a nurse named Lucia, asked me, "Why palliative care? What brought you here?" And I told her, not everything, but enough. I told her about Miss Beatrice, about how she had reminded me of my original dreams, about how I had spent years caring for everyone except myself, and how I was finally learning to balance that. "I want to help people," I said, "but in a healthy way, in a way that doesn't destroy me in the process." Lucia nodded with understanding. I think we're all here to learn that on some level. Outside the program, my life continued to transform in small but significant ways. I joined a book club. I hadn't read for pleasure in years. I was always too tired, too worried, and too consumed by others' dramas. But now, sitting in a cafe on Thursday nights with a group of strangers who were becoming friends, discussing novels, and sharing perspectives, I felt alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. I started running, just 30 minutes 3 times a week at first, but it was time that was completely mine. No phone, no obligations, just the rhythm of my feet on the pavement and the beating of my heart. I redesigned my apartment, Rodrigo had taken his things, leaving empty spaces that felt like open wounds. But instead of rushing to fill them with new things, I took my time. I painted the walls a soft blue that made me think of the ocean. I bought many plants and learned to care for them. I hung art that I liked, not what I thought I should like. I turned my space into a sanctuary, a refuge that was completely mine. And slowly it began to feel like home. In August, I received an unexpected message. It was from Patricia. Sophia, I know things are bad between us. I know I hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know something. I was wrong about everything, about how we treated you, about the money, about everything. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I did the things I did. And one of the things my therapist made me see is how much I used you, how much we all used you. I'm sorry. I know it's late, and I know it probably doesn't mean much now, but I'm sorry. I read the message several times. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, wanted to believe this was the beginning of a reconciliation. But another part, the wiser part that had been growing these months, was cautious. I showed it to Dr. Vargas in our next session. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe her. I want to believe she finally sees me, that she finally understands. And the other part remembers all the previous times they felt sorry only to repeat exactly the same behavior a week later. Both parts are valid, Dr. Vargas said. The question isn't which part is right. The question is, what do you need right now? What serves you? I thought about that for days. Finally, I responded, Patricia, I appreciate your apology. I'm glad you're in therapy and working on yourself. But you need to understand something. Apologies don't erase the damage. They don't restore trust. That takes time, and it takes consistent actions, not just words. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you right now. Maybe someday I will be. But for now, I need space to continue healing. I hope you can respect that. Her response was surprisingly mature. I understand, and I respect it. I'll be here if you're ready to talk. It wasn't a happy thing ever after, but it was honest, and it was enough. At the end of August, Monica called me with news. The Polanco apartment, she said. The judge approved the seizure. It's going to be an auction next month. And what does that mean? It means we're probably going to recover at least 1 million pesos from that sale. Not everything. We're still fighting for the rest of his assets, but it's a start. 1 million pesos, less than he owed me, but more than I had now. What are you going to do with the money when it comes? Monica asked. It was a good question. A year ago, I would have had a list of people who needed that money. My family, Rodrigo, ironically, someone else with an emergency or a dream I could finance. But now the answer was different. I'm going to finish paying for the certification program. I said, I'm going to create a real emergency fund, one I never touch unless absolutely necessary. And the rest is going to be for my future, for the clinic I someday want to open, for the dreams I set aside. I like it, Monica said. I like it a lot. I completed the palliative care certification program in December. The graduation ceremony was small, just the 15 of us graduates and some family and friends. Marcella came, and Lucia from the program, and Carolina, who had become an unexpected friend. Miss Beatriz couldn't attend. She had passed away in October, peacefully surrounded by her family, but her daughter came in her place, bringing a letter that Miss Beatriz had written before she died. Dear Sophia, if you're reading this, it means you followed your dream. It means you valued yourself enough to pursue what you wanted. I'm so proud of you. The world needs more people like you, people who care with all their heart, but who also know how to care for themselves. Go and do wonderful things. With love, Beatrice. I cried reading that letter. I cried for the loss of a woman who had seen my potential when I was barely beginning to see it myself. I cried for the gratitude of having been reminded of my dreams just when I needed them most. And I cried for joy because despite everything, the pain, the betrayal, the losses I had made here, in January of the following year, almost exactly 1 year after Rodrigo left me, I received a check for 1,200,000 pesos. the proceeds from the Polanco apartment auction minus legal costs. It was strange to have that money in my hands. For so long, it had been an abstract concept, an amount on legal papers, but now it was real. And I had to decide what to do with it. The first call I made was to my bank. I opened a high-yield savings account and deposited 800,000 pesos, my emergency fund, untouchable except in case of true crisis. The second move was to completely pay off my credit card 67,000 pesos I had been dragging since the days with Rodrigo. The third was to establish a fund for my future clinic, 300,000 pesos that I invested in low-risk instruments, money that would grow slowly while I gained experience and made plans. And the remaining 33,000 pesos I used for something completely frivolous, a trip, 2 weeks in Oaxaca, alone, exploring, eating, resting. I wasn't running from anything. I was running toward something, toward myself, toward the life I was building. During that trip, while I was sitting on a terrace overlooking the mountains, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Rodrigo. Sophia, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you should probably block this number, but I need you to know something. You were right about everything. It wasn't love I felt, it was convenient, and I used you in the most horrible way. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I saw it now, and I'm sorry. I read the message twice, waiting to feel something, rage, sadness, satisfaction, something, but all I felt was indifference. Rodrigo no longer had power over me. His apology, sincere or not, didn't change anything. It didn't erase the past. It didn't alter my future. It simply, I blocked the number and ordered another coffee. In February, my first official job in palliative care began, a position at a small but respected hospice, working with terminal patients and their families. The work was intense, emotional, exhausting, but it was also deeply meaningful. Every day, I helped people navigate the most difficult moment of their lives. I helped them find dignity in death, peace during pain, and in the process, I learned lessons about living. I learned that time was the most precious resource. Those healthy relationships were ones that gave as much as they received, that real love never asked you to destroy yourself. I learned that setting boundaries wasn't cruelty, it was respect, both for myself and for others. I learned that my value wasn't determined by my usefulness to others, but by the simple fact of my existence. I learned that I deserved to take up space, to have needs, to ask for reciprocity, and slowly, painfully, gloriously, I learned to love myself. One day in March, while organizing a fundraising event for the hospice, a man approached me. He was familiar somehow, but I couldn't place him immediately. Sophia, he asked, and then I recognized him. It was Javier, my brother. He looked different, thinner, more tired, less arrogant. Javier, I said cautiously. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, he said quickly, and I understand. But when I saw your name on the event program, I thought maybe I could at least try to talk to you. What do you want, Javier? To pay you. He pulled out an envelope. It's 80,000 pesos, the money I owe you for my wedding. I know it's late. I know it probably doesn't mean much now, but I wanted you to know that I finally saw it. I see what we did for you, what I did to you. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Patricia told me you were in therapy, he continued. I'm going to, and one of the things I'm working on is accountability, making amends. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to do this. Why now, I asked. Why after all these years? Because my daughter turned 15 last month, he said, his voice breaking. And when I saw her at her party, so beautiful and full of life, I thought of you at that age. I thought of everything you sacrificed for us, and I realized that if anyone ever treated her the way we treated you, he stopped, wiping his eyes. I'm so sorry, Sophie. I'm so sorry for being so blind, so selfish. I didn't know what to say. Years of anger and pain were mixed with something like compassion. Thank you, I finally said. For this, for an apology, for finally seeing it.
Is there any chance we could?
He left the question unfinished. I don't know, I answered honestly. I need time. I need to see if this is real or just another moment, but I appreciate that you came. He nodded, tears running down his face. I understand. I'll be here whenever you're ready, if you ever are. He left, and I stood there holding the envelope with 80,000 pesos I had waited for 4 years. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen, being valued, being finally acknowledged. And though it didn't erase the past, it was a beginning. It's my 38th birthday, 2 years after that devastating night when Rodrigo left me with a cake. I bought myself and melted candles. But this birthday is different. I'm in my new apartment, one smaller than the previous one, but completely mine, paid for with my own savings. The walls are painted the color I chose, filled with photographs of moments that matter, my graduation from the certification program, a beach trip with Marcella and my friends, a photo of Miss Beatriz that her daughter gave me. On my dining table is a cake. I didn't buy it this time. It was made by Lucia, my friend from the program, who now works with me at the hospice. It's a homemade cake, slightly lopsided, clumsily decorated, but with love. Around the table are the people who matter, Marcela, Lucia, Carolina, Carmen, and other friends from the hospital. There aren't many, but they're real. They're relationships built on reciprocity, respect, genuine affection. My phone vibrates. A message from Patricia. Happy birthday, sister. I know we're still working on our relationship, and I respect your space. I just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you today. I love you. Another message from Javier. Happy birthday, Sophie. Attached is payment number 3 of 6. I'll get to 0, I promise. He's been paying me for installments faithfully every 2 months. I've already received 240,000 pesos back from the various family loans. It's not everything, but it's progress. My relationship with my family is complicated. We've had some family dinners and some difficult conversations. I've established clear boundaries, no more loans, no more emergencies, no more assuming I'm available to rescue. And surprisingly, they've respected it, mostly. There are still moments when they fall into old patterns, moments when I have to reinforce my boundaries, but I'm learning that healthy relationships require constant maintenance. It's not a destination, it's a process. As for Rodrigo, the criminal case finally proceeded. He was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended with probation, and forced to return money, not only to me, but to 2 other women who came forward after the case became public. I've received almost everything he owed me, 1,400,000 so far, with the rest coming in monthly payments ordered by the court. But most importantly, Rodrigo no longer occupies space in my mind. I don't think about him. I don't dream about him. I don't wonder, what if he's simply a part of my story? A closed chapter. Time for cake, Marcella announces, lighting the candles. 38 candles. 1 year wiser, 1 year stronger, 1 year more myself. Make a wish, Carolina says. I close my eyes. 2 years ago, I would have wished to be loved. I would have wished for my family to finally see me, for Rodrigo to come back, for someone, anyone, to show me I was worth it. But today, my wish is different. I wish to keep growing. I wish to maintain these boundaries I so painfully built. I wish to continue building this life that is genuinely mine. And more deeply, I wish for all the women who are where I was, lost in the pattern of giving and giving until there's nothing left, that they find the courage to say no, to set boundaries, to reclaim their lives. I blow out the candles to the chorus of congratulations from my friends. And as we eat cake and laugh and share stories, I realize something profound. Freedom didn't come when Rodrigo left. It didn't come when I won the case. It didn't come when I received the money. It came when I stopped measuring my worth by my ability to be useful to others. It came when I understood I didn't have to earn love through sacrifice. It came when finally I realized I was already enough, exactly as I was. And that understanding that internal freedom was worth more than all the millions I had lost and recovered. Later that night, after my friends leave, I sit on my balcony with a cup of tea, looking at the city lights. My phone vibrates one more time. It's an email from my financial advisor. Yes, I now have one with an update on my investments. My clinic fund has grown to 410,000 pesos. At this rate, in 3 years, I'll have enough for the down payment on a small space. A palliative care clinic. My dream from so long ago finally becoming reality. But even if it never materializes, even if life takes a different turn, I know this. I'm the owner of my own story now. I'm no longer a supporting character in others' narratives, existing only to support their dreams, finance their lives, absorb their abuses. I'm the protagonist of my own life. And finally, gloriously, I'm writing an ending that makes me happy. If you find yourself in a pattern of giving and giving until there's nothing left, if the people in your life always take but never give, if you feel guilty every time you set a boundary, please listen. You are not selfish for having needs. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not petty for expecting reciprocity. Real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself. Real family doesn't exploit your generosity. Healthy relationships are a two-way street. And if the people in your life make you feel bad for taking care of yourself, those people don't love you, they use you. Reclaiming your life won't be easy. There will be guilt, pain, loss. There will be moments when you want to give in, to return to the old patterns because at least they were familiar. But on the other side of that pain is something beautiful. Freedom. The freedom to be yourself. The freedom to have dreams that are yours. The freedom to build a life that doesn't require you to sacrifice yourself to exist. I got there, you can too. And when you do, you'll discover what I discovered. You were worth it all along. You just had to believe it enough to fight for it.